Welcome, dear viewers, on the fourth episode of Beyond the Boardroom. I, Malcolm Athayet, CEO of Agrim Housing Finance, feel honored to be able to gain from the wisdom from industry leaders and veterans in their field who come on our show. We do hope you have been enjoying our virtual chat as much as I have in presenting it. On today's episode, we are here to speak particularly on a topic of relevance in today's environment. That is what we are pondering on mental health and wellness. COVID has had such a severe effect in the collective mental health of a lot of people who are working from home. While we are used to working in office, working from home brings its own set of challenges. And for this, we are here to introduce Dr. Amit Malik. He's the founder and CEO of InnerR. It is a mental health platform that delivers tech-led multi-professional specialty services in mental health care. Dr. Malik has extensive global experience in working in the field of mental health services as a psychiatrist, senior clinical and professional leader, as well as an entrepreneur. Thank you, Dr. Malik, for making time with us today.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, to begin with, Amit, let's address what's the foremost topic in everyone's mind today. How does one draw the line between your personal and professional lives?
I think people know the answer to this. So, but I'm just going to spell it out so that it just gets embedded in people's mind. I think the first thing is to set some boundaries, right? So, and I think people have done this already. I think because now it's been a year since we've been more than a year now since we've been living this life. What a lot of people have done successfully, and that's what people tell us has really helped them, is saying that they've realigned their daily routine. Right? Because what had happened before was that travel and commute used to provide natural breaks in that, and that doesn't happen anymore. So as an example now, when I get up to get ready for work, I get up like I would get up and get ready for work in a regular day, right? So I get up, have my morning, do my morning rituals, which includes some meditation, which include a bit of physical exercise, with training, and then some quiet time before I get into my emails, and then I go get ready, have breakfast, get dressed, and then go in a separate area and sit down and start working. That's it. While I haven't gotten out and commuted, I literally have made the physical movement to come and start working in a separate place from that perspective. So my morning rituals are what they always were, right? Actually, they've got better and they've got more disciplined as I was telling you off the record. But so that I'm now exercising more regularly. And I think telling people that to have a schedule that aligns with this new normal, right? Where you have your morning rituals, you then have a clear demarcated space for working, where you take regular breaks for lunch and dinner, right? And you don't fall in this trap of sitting on your desk and eating your food and you know and doing these things which don't allow you any breaks. So that's one. I think so that routine is very important. Second is important to manage your expectations. Just because you can doesn't mean you have to work all day, right? Just because the commute time is also saved now, that time could be used for other things, whether it's family or whether it's some enjoyment or whether it's actually upskilling yourself. And those boundaries become very important. And to do that, sometimes a degree of polite assertiveness becomes important, right? Saying yes every time can be a big trap in that situation. So that's very important from a drawing boundaries, definitely. And then do create transition times, right? The start of work, the break for lunch, the end of work. Do create some rituals which sort of tell your body and your brain that you are the work has started and work is finished, right? And then do take regular breaks. So I think those are 3 4 things: having a routine, having transition rituals, being assertive, setting some boundaries, and then implementing self-care strategies like taking breaks and sleeping and eating on time are important from that perspective.
Okay, those are really helpful tips, Amit. That brings me to my next question. In this pandemic times, we always see a lot of large corporates tweaking their HR policies because they have the bandwidth, they have the policies and procedures, and they have the wherewithal to manage. I mean, uh, the employee wellness in a much more structured manner. My question is that what do people like us, like a lot of startups, are doing? I mean, how can we manage? Because with the limited bandwidth that we have, how do we manage and keep the fine balance between employee performance and wellness?
I mean, I can tell you what we've done to start with and see if that chimes, right? I think that all the science is telling us that actually working longer hours doesn't lead to better productivity, right? So that's the first thing to recognize that, and it's a massive cultural issue here, right? I've worked in different continents over my career, and one of the massive cultural issues I experienced working here was that there is this badge of honor in the long hours we work, right? From that perspective, so there's a massive cultural issue. I've been part of that same sort of trap many times since I've come back to India, right? So I think so that's the first fact to recognize, that working long hours doesn't mean we're getting more done, right? So secondly, when we were a 6 day a week or 5.5 day a week company, and now we're down to 5 days a week for the duration of the pandemic, right? Because we recognize that people have more to do at home. When people are staying more at home, they have family responsibilities, they have domestic responsibilities that they probably didn't have when kids were going to school all day, or the domestic help was coming in. So they need that downtime when they can catch up with life, basically. Right? So we've done that. Third, I mean, we are a very small startup, right? But we've technically we've engaged external therapists to provide emotional support to our employees. Right? We made that commitment, saying that that's quite important. So we made that commitment that because we can't use our own therapists, we now use external therapists. It's busy. I mean, we've been super busy because it's been a very busy time for us, because a lot of people are struggling right now. We've grown about 3x in by any metric in the last 4 months you want to measure, right? But at the same time, we've decided that we're going to resource that the right way, and try and manage it. We don't always succeed, but I think also the second thing is listening to people will give you suggestions and ideas that you might not have as managers. Right? So sometimes they might have a way of getting more done with less time or less resource that you might not have thought of. So actually staying tuned to the team is very, very important in this context, right? Because right, innovation and thinking and doing things is very, very important. So that's the other thing. And third, is very important to consider the whole employee, right? We're very much used to considering the employee that comes to work, but it's the same employee who has a family, it's the same employee who has loved ones who might be sick or unwell, and that has this going to have an impact on work. So it's very, very important to consider the whole employee. So just those 3 or 4 things. I think this also very important at some level that leaders in organizations show some vulnerability. And if we stand up and say, "Oh, I am a rock star and I can withstand everything and I can push through this," then even those of our team members who are struggling will be scared or embarrassed or shy to speak up and say, "No, I'm struggling. I need some help." And that's just going to brush the problem on the carpet. It's not going to go away. So leaders showing some vulnerability is very, very important. So those 3 or 4 things, where prioritizing the whole employee, prioritizing their mental health, understanding time doesn't equal productivity, and showing some vulnerability yourself is quite important from that perspective.
Okay, that's really well said, Amit. I also have maybe a follow-on question on this. So, as a leader, you have given us certain suggestions on a few things that we should do and implement wellness in the organization. But is there something as a policy, or for example, as a process or something that we can institute, maybe even at a small organization or a large organization, um, uh, that can make a change or enable the continued wellness and mental health of our teams?
So let me just talk in 2 parts. Right? Let me just talk about the leadership part a bit more, right? Just to give us a bit more context, so that will tie in well with how leaders think about policies, right? So I think I already talked about demonstrating vulnerability, right? I think it's also very, very important that we reflect on the situation and reset our goals. You just have to recalibrate from time to time and say, okay, things are moving, and and a lot of present dynamic leadership is very important, right? Showing up every day, connecting with your people, and showing up, having present dynamic leadership is quite important right now at this point, right? The the third thing is you have to engage in self care yourself as a leader. You are not immune to all the challenges that come with. None of us are. None of us are immune to all the challenges that come with uh, the kind of stresses that we have to juggle, and especially if you are running our own organizations. The market is uncertain, hiring is difficult, attrition can be high, employee sickness is a challenge. All those things have to be juggled every day. So practicing some degree of self-care, which could involve anything from listening to music to meditating to engaging in a hobby, very important to find some time every day to do that, even though at that point it might seem like a waste of time. It's a pretty prudent investment in the long term. I think making sleep a non-negotiable, right? So we know that tons of data which tells us that sleeping within 7 to 8 hours is very important. Science says 8, but in Indian context, I tone it down a bit to say 7 to 8. But also, especially in a crisis, but also the time in which you sleep, right? So sleeping at 2 and 10 and waking up at 10 a.m. in the morning is not the same as sleeping by 9, 10 o'clock at night and waking up at 6. The quality of that sleep is much better if you sleep on time and wake up on time, and if you sleep in the same rhythm every day. That's from a leader's perspective. And then the last bit I'd say is seek help yourself. If you are struggling, which means you're finding yourself being more irritable, where every problem, every challenge is frustrating you, and I think it's time to seek help from a leader's perspective. So I think those are answers from a leadership perspective. Things to think about are around seeking help yourself, practicing self-care and mindfulness, and making sleep a non-negotiable, resetting the goals and reflecting on them constantly, depending on what the reality on the ground is, and demonstrating some vulnerability. And now you talked about policies, right? I split that into two parts really. I think one is really policies that can preempt problems, right? And say, what can we do to preempt problems before they surface and start happening, right? And a big part of that is monitoring workloads. How do you actually, do you really understand as an organization, as a manager, as a leader, and are there processes in place for you to understand better and more transparently how busy your employees are, and at an individual level, and the context of their life, right? And this is it's almost easy to ignore that and say, I've told them the work, they'll not get the work done. It's not my problem. It will become your problem. I promise you, it will become your problem. If not today, maybe in a month's time. So understanding that first part, right? Secondly, it's important to create a culture of care, right? Which means that you value your own well-being and you show that you value your team's well-being. Right? If you don't put a premium on yours and their well-being, then at some point they are not going to care about the organization back. Right? And it's not going to be that transactional. It's more subconscious. So valuing their well-being is very, very important. Third, I think one thing that really helps in organizations, and some of them do really well, is they bookend their day. They have policies and teams that they start the day with a chit chat for 10 minutes and they end the day with a chit chat for 10 minutes. Right? And that's a really good strategy because it really allows people to connect in a non-agenda way. There's not a chit chat to say, okay, did you get the work done or not? This is a chit chat to say, how was your day? What's your plan for the evening? Right? So that bookending really helps from time to time. And maybe it's time to revisit company values for some organizations, right? If you don't believe that the world has changed in the last 18 months, you've not been paying attention. So that is the important part. So these are the preemptive things, right? And then detect emerging issues. That's the second point, right? So don't wait for things to blow up. Once you've tried to preempt them, then detect emerging issues. We do a regular pulse survey, and we get a lot of data. We get about 95% return on our pulse survey. We're a small organization. We can brag of that, but large organizations hard. So anonymous pulse surveys are really useful to detecting brewing mental health issues before they emerge. Right? People tell you. Most people tell you how they're feeling. We just ask a simple question: How are you feeling? Right? What is frustrating you? What's making you happy? Any other highlights? Right? So that's all we ask. 4 questions. It takes people about 5 minutes to fill, and we get such a wealth of data every month from our employees. It's absolutely brilliant. And secondly, practice active as an organization. You've got to practice active listening, right? You've got to have a culture where it's about two-way listening, not just about one-way diktat. And if that's got to be held by policy, then that's got to be held by policies. Third is you got to embed employee wellness in your review process. It shouldn't just be about how did you perform; it's about how are you doing. And then finally, you provide for remediations, right, when problems have happened. So, and that's what organizations, I would put a lot of premium on the right wellness program. And then finally, setting up some degree of peer support and group exchanges, which allow employees to sort of support each other as well, is very, very important. So I think those three areas, right, from a policy perspective, preventing problems, detecting them early, especially using pulse surveys, and then providing wellness solutions, especially for mental health, are the three areas that one should sort of look at incorporating in their policy themselves.
I think these are wonderful insights, Amit. I think these are really, really useful things. Some of them I will surely practice with our teams and also practice myself. I think thanks a lot for the insights and the advice and the suggestions and the tips actually for our viewers and for everyone who views our podcast. I think this is it makes a lot of difference to all of us. Thanks a lot, Doctor.
No, thank you for having me. Thanks so much.